Scotty, thank you for that. I'm just going to introduce our fellow panellist, Lorraine Martins, OBE, Global Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Director at Arup, previously led on D&I at the London Olympics in 2012, and a member of the advisory board for the Underwriting Souls research led by Black Beyond Data and the developing of the Inclusive Futures programme. So I've got a few questions for both of you, which I hope to bring to life your perspective on leadership, diversity, challenge, but also the opportunity that we have in hand. So it's not, to Scotty's point, to take some lead from you. We have an opportunity, it's not all negative. But for Lorraine, I'll start with you. You are known to many as the D&I expert that really made the London 2012 Olympics a demonstration of diversity in London. And amongst many other things, you got an OBE for that. What was it like working in the Olympics?
Thank you for such a generous introduction. And I've not been called a national treasure to my face, so that's an accolade that doesn't sit easy with me. So thank you for that. And Scotty, 100%, thank you for that. It's very inspiring. What was it like working on the Games? So I was part of the construction of the Olympic Park. So we built the theatre. And if any of you live in London and go shopping in Westfield, every time you go there now, from now on, you're going to think of me, because actually that was all part of our responsibility. We were building a town within a town. I live in Hackney, the Federal Republic of Hackney. So when you said Peckham, yeah, oh, listen, I was having issues. I was trying to be really empathy with you, and you said Peckham, and I was like, oh, wrong side of London. But so Hackney, for those of you that know, in the East End of London, really is Hackney, Tower Hamlets, London Borough of Newham, Waltham Forest, all have the wrong indices in terms of health, education, unemployment, particularly of minoritised communities. So working on the Games, really, and the construction of the Olympic Park was to try and redress some of those historic imbalances that our communities had experienced, and particularly in terms of regeneration, when we could look at the sector of Canary Wharf. So if any of you that are familiar in East End terms, you've got Canary Wharf, which is kind of like a gated community. And then we've got another new regeneration opportunity. How do we make that much more accessible and actually build a legacy for the future, learning off of other games that had happened? So for me, the sceptre of doing that and living locally was really exciting. I'd come from an experience of working in the public sector, and I've got an activist heritage, which I'm very proud of. So working on the Games was a real opportunity to try and give life to some of my own values, but it was part of the values of what we were doing as working on the Games. So there's a real synergy, to your point, a real synergy of feeling that I was at the right place at the right time, doing something that I was really passionate about. And I was in an environment which was completely like-minded. So everybody that was there was at the top of their game. Everybody that was there knew that we were making something that was particularly unique and would have a real impact, and that the world was watching us, right? So there's a goldfish bowl. People was like, they're not going to complete on time. They're going to be like Athens and have people come in and start painting the last minute before. You know, we had all of these things. We had the political dimensions, which were, at the time, how are you going to utilise the money? Because we started off with one budget and the budget grew and all of those things. So the environment was tense at times. But I think for us, we created a real team of people that were facing into the same challenge. And so it's one of the most exciting things that I've been involved in. And it's even more exciting because when I go there, I get a little rush because I know what it was like. I don't know if any of you grew up in East London. So I remember how it was and how we leveled the whole entire environment. And now to look at it and see people enjoying both the Olympic Park and all of the edifices, and now the legacy that's manifesting itself is a real excitement. So, to your question, how was it working on the Games? It's a phenomenal experience, and I'm really pleased that I had that opportunity.
It sounds incredible.
And you know, just to speak on that, I mean, I was in London during that time. I got to go over to Stratford every day during the Olympics and the Paralympics as well. I'm sure everybody here will agree that it was the best Olympics ever, and it changed London, right? And I remember travelling from West to East London in my Marines uniform, and everybody was speaking to each other on the tube. Everybody was engaging with each other. You know, that multinational, multi-diverse. Everybody was all. I was handing badges and pin badges round to everybody. Everybody was buzzing, whether they were going to the games or not. And that effort that you're talking about, that bringing the right people together, it changed London, didn't it? Of course, as soon as the Olympics finished, it went back to normal, didn't it?
Yeah, it took a little while, but
And the challenge is, how do we keep it going? Because that was just incredible. It changed us all.
Well, I have a question just about that, because you both talk about being able to create environments where people do feel like they belong, do feel like they're part of a club, do feel like their identity is a shared identity. But I guess my question for you, Scotty, is when you've been in environments where that's not been the case, and how that's felt, and how you've been able to navigate that environment, or seen others navigate that environment, what's that feel like?
Yeah, I was fortunate to be exposed as in my 18, 19-year-old self to, these qualities and values that high performance teams have to create.
Yeah.
And, when I look around, I see what's going on. I see the lack of opportunity. I see the lack of opportunity for young people to thrive. I see the lack of respect as well. And it's very difficult. These challenges, these things still stick with you. I remember still having some self-doubts after I'd been on operations. I've been in the Marines for like 15 years, and I was thrown in to go and do senior officer training, staff college they call it. I was the only mixed race person there out of 500. Everybody I spoke to had double firsts at Oxford or Cambridge. And even after I'd done all those operations and I had perspective of pressure, I still felt that, do I deserve to be here? That little nagging self-doubt. And I've been lucky to have the training that I do, to be able to have a benchmark where you think, you know what, you've overcome that, you can overcome this, and to have that perspective. But not everybody gets that. And that confidence and belief that comes from these bedrock values, that feeling that you can overcome, is something which we can develop. But I think it's down to the likes of us, so many people in this room, I am sure, incredible role models who want to make a difference to our young people's lives so that they can have those opportunities to thrive that some of us in this room have had as well. And I think it's beholden on us to try to make a difference. It starts with respect, right?
Totally agree.
And I see respect as three ways. The respect you must have for yourself to start with. Hopefully the respect that you have for others. And then finally, the respect that you hope that others have for you. And what I've found is that when you can start off with a bedrock value like respect, then communication lines are open. You've got that ability to inspire, to be role models and help our young people on the stepping stones to success in life. I think that's my mission now, if I'm honest.
That's a wonderful mission, and something I think we can all get behind. And talking about missions and a collective response to change and history. Lorraine, you were involved in the Inclusive Futures programme. Firstly, what inspired you to get involved, and how have you found that journey, and what are your aspirations for taking that forward, and how do you feel Lloyds has managed it so far?
First off, I think you have to give props to Mark Lomas, right? Is Mark in here? He's sitting somewhere at the back.
Oh, yeah.
Without Mark, I wouldn't be sitting here, right? So Mark, I think, needs the utmost props from you all for getting that project off the ground. I think it was incredibly seminal for you to think about how you utilise the historic resources that you have, that formed Lloyds of London, to try and make some sorts of reparations for future generations, an incredibly brave and bold project. And so I was blown away by the fact that you could even think that that was it. And you did it at a time where, you know, there was the scepter of the murder of George Floyd. So there was a lot of performative actions and reactions that were responding to that. And what you decided to do was something that was systemic and built on the history and the profits, and thought, well, how could we redistribute that and make some amends in the future? So I was absolutely blown away by the fact that Lloyd's of London would do that. So, you know, absolute props to you, and I was honoured to really be part of that. And then I think the group and the research that you undertook was so robust and so sensitive in trying to extrapolate from a history which businesses don't want to necessarily get into, and who owns it, where does the profit start from, how did we gain all of that. That is not a history that businesses are ready to necessarily explore, and that was, you did that at a time when it was really challenging. So for me, that you did that project, that you resourced it, that you did the robust research that enabled you then at every step of the stage of that project to say, right, what can we do differently, how can we learn, how can we make things better for the future, has been a real lesson to me. And so for me, if you could talk about it more, I would really encourage you to do that. And I know, you know, big institutions are kind of shy about saying these things. And also other institutions will look at you and go, well, I don't know if should we really do that? You know, what does it mean? How do we take accountability for things that happened in the past before we were here? And I think it's a really great example of building on a history that we don't talk about, that is seminal, because a lot of the divisions we have are based on the fact of the difference in treatment of different people from different heritages and backgrounds, and how we create access to resources and opportunities. If we don't address those things, then things will continue. So to me, you've led the way. I don't think there's enough talk about it. I would give you more confidence as an institution to talk about it and share it, to give others an example of what can be done. And I think it stands you in great stead. So to me, as I said, it was an absolute honour. I was absolutely blown away and impressed by the approach that you've taken. And I'm forever indebted to Mark. I haven't paid him or anything. He hasn't. And he's not paid me, actually, to be honest. The invoice is still outstanding. But I'm genuinely indebted to Mark for being bold enough and corralling you all to get that work done.
So I think one of the things about leadership, and we talk about it from many different perspectives, Lloyd's role in this market is to lead, right? So I'm so delighted when people from outside our market see us leading, right? I think the Inclusive Futures programme is a phenomenal, to your word, seminal piece of work, but it's not finished, right? We've got 1,500 profiles identified of talent that can go on to senior leadership roles. Half of those are ethnically diverse talents. I expect to be surrounded by other leaders that look like me and you guys on the stage. And that's down to the people that lead the market today. There's no point doing this work and then letting that talent pool wilter away and go and work for Amazon and Google, and they're our clients, right? We want them to be here. We want the best people to be here. I feel proud of this place, and I want you guys to feel proud of that too. You have a role to play. So thank you for your reflection. But I want you to come back again in a couple of years' time and go, you've carried it on, we've done more, we've taken it further and been bolder. So just on that, Scotty, I've got a question for you about wearing the green beret. I talked about that invisible Lloyd's tattoo, right? You said, no one's interested in your background, just do the job. If you can do the job, you get my respect. How do you nurture that? How do you ensure people feel safe to challenge each other in that environment?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's funny, you know, from literally the first second you get there, they tell you that that, you know, we'll show you how to do everything, how we behave, what our qualities and values are, and you're assessed by them. So you actually assessed against integrity. You know, did you do the right thing or did you do the thing that was easiest? And at the end of the week, they'll come back and say, actually, you know, you walked past the litter, you didn't go and pick it up. So you did the easy thing rather than the right thing. And you're assessed on that every day. And then it becomes a norm, it becomes your habit and your behaviour. You're exposed to doing the right thing as a young person, then you like to try to inspire others around you to do and to be the same, to show those moral values, to show that integrity, that humility, that moral courage to do the right thing. And, you know, when you couple that with respect, when you couple that with our commando values that we hold so dear, and of course, they are not just the Marines' values. These go across everybody in every walk of life. And, you know, we're very proud to have, you know, you spoke about an invisible badge there. You know, what does it truly mean to work? The pride that you have, it shines. Don't need something to show you. It shines and exudes from you. And the way I see it is that leaders set the tone and environment for any organisation. And, you know, I had 13 different promotions, I think, through my time in the Marines. So no matter where you were on the promotion ladder, I like to think that I had open door access to my boss upwards, supported the people who you have the privilege to lead below you, drive those standards from within the organisation, and then expel those standards out to anybody who'll listen to you, the way that it exudes from you today. And I think that's a leader's role. Look after your people, be inspiring, set the standard, be the standard that everybody aspires to be. And I think that's what a high performance team starts to look like.
You should write that down.
And I think what I really like, you said so many things that I really appreciate and like, but I think for those of us that are leaders here, the word that you've used several times is about the privilege that we have as leaders. And I think oftentimes we don't really appreciate that privilege because we affect the futures, the environment, the culture that people experience. So we need to take that privilege really, really seriously and to affect then the changes that we want to see in terms of who comes through, who has access to opportunities. That, you know, that rests within our gift. So that privilege we should use judiciously.
You know, that's interesting, right? So you know, me and Gareth Southgate are pals, and we keep in touch with each other, which is great. But I'm going to bring out about his qualities as a leader because he's a very inspirational leader, actually. So his team doesn't do very well. The first person you'll see in front of all the cameras is Gareth Southgate saying, being humble, no ego, I chose the team, I chose the tactics, this is on me, taking the pressure off your team because they're all young people and that would be crushing. Tens of millions of people saying you're a failure. He knows to do that. But then he goes to the next level as a leader, as an inspirational role model. When his team does great, how many leaders do you know are in the shadows, in the darkness, pushing their team forward to accept
That's right.
to accept the accolades? You did it, you go forwards. And, you know, those are some of the best leaders that I've ever come across. The guy that I showed you up there, you know, incredible leaders. I've got time for a little story about leader.
Very quick one, yeah.
Okay. This guy called Gordon Messenger, who you know. He was my commanding officer in Iraq. To cut a long story short, our third child was born while I was out in Iraq, and he came up to me and said, "Scotty, I'm really sorry for not being able to get your daughter for you home for the birth of your daughter, but he had a big satellite phone, could make one call a day, and he'd made that call back home so that I could speak to the wife. It's a girl, you know, amazing. He comes up to me and said, Scotty, I'm sorry for not getting you home. That's where you should be. I'll make it up to your wife one day. How many times do we hear a boss make big promises? Yeah? And I knew him. I thought, okay. 4 years later, you saw the picture of me and him there. I was commissioned into the Marines. 4 years later, he was the inspecting officer. I meet him at the bar. He's got a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. Says, Scotty, where's the wife? I've not seen him for 4 years. I said, she's down there. So off he went down towards her. I'm scurrying behind him like one of his minions, as usual. He goes up to my wife, says, Suzanne, remembers her name. He had command of 1,000 Marines, by the way. Suzanne, I'm so sorry for not getting Scotty home for the birth of Casey. Remembered her name. Here's a bottle of champagne, there's 2 glasses. Me and you are going to sit and drink that. Scotty's not invited. What's all that about?
Lovely. Amazing.
Talk about leadership, inspiring leaders. I've never forgotten him. Best leader I've ever worked with, as I've told you.
Amazing. Well, look, I need to bring our amazing panel to a close. It's been phenomenal just to sit with you both and gain your perspective on leadership, on diversity, on inclusion, like genuinely including people, and a sense of collective identity. That's what we should have in this market. That's what we sell to the world. So it's incumbent upon each of us sat here to bring that to life. So thank you very much to both of you for being here, and I'll hand over to David to finish off with closing remarks. No?
Got a Q&A.
Oh, sorry. Forgive me. Go back. Before I hand over to David, I will open up to the audience for questions. David, you can ask one if you want. I've got a question here. Do we have a mic or?
Yeah, just coming round.
Hi, my name is Ken. I'm the Head of Inclusion and Diversity at AXA XL.
Hi, Ken.
And first and foremost, I just wanted to say thank you for being role models. Like, seeing is believing, and honestly, it raises aspirations when you see people who have done so well in their careers. So thanks for that. But my question itself is about leadership. So there are leaders in this room and future leaders in this room as well. What are some of the practical tips and advice you can give us for driving performance excellence, but not eroding that feeling of belonging?
Great question. I suppose the best tips I could ever give you as a potential or future leader, never ask your people to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. We've already mentioned that one. Trust and empower your people and let them get on with their jobs and don't micromanage them is one that I think is important. And I think those are the 2 that stick out mostly for me anyway.
One of the things that I think is really important and has been important for me is spending time with my people. Talent needs space to grow, needs space to learn, to fail, to learn from those mistakes. And if you give people time, that's the thing that I have, right? So I've got knowledge and expertise, blah, blah, blah. But if I don't give my team time and access to me, then that for me is what they fed back and said, that's actually what we want from you, Lorraine. So I've set up my team that they can have whatever time they want from me. Like, they're my priority, because if they don't deliver, they don't perform, I don't perform. Right? So for me, one of the things that's been really important has been giving time. And it's been a learning for me, because actually I get to appreciate how my team experiences the world, the organisation, the challenges, and gives me an opportunity to work with them through those things. And then I can also share my vulnerabilities and challenges for them to learn how I might operate. So for me, the essence of great leadership is that time, that accessibility to what I might be able to offer and give and share.
Oh, that's such a great answer as well. And you know what, if I build on that a little bit.
Of course.
Something that's always stood me in good stead was someone once said to me, if you have the privilege to ever lead anybody, then try to find a way to inspire them every single day, if you can. And how do you inspire people? Well, you give them access to you, don't you? And do something for them. Show some interest. Make them feel valued. And of course, it's good leadership to do that. Because when people feel valued, they feel as though they got you here, they're going to give you the best of what they've got They're going to give you their innovation. They're going to give you their ideas. They're going to feel that freedom to be able to express themselves without fear of judgment, right? And something that I've found that's worked for me my whole career, and I still do it now, is I try to inspire to start with in some way. Then if you can inspire people, they're more likely to engage with you. I think things just land on them better. And if people will then engage with you, then you can help them to develop and help them to change. And that inspire, engage and change has worked for me my whole career, and I still use it today.
We had a question at the back.
Yes, I'm Ola Jacob, and I work at Global Parametrics, and I lead our business development. And I'm also a Homerton baby, so I understand where you're coming from. But I was going to say that your stories are so inspiring, and Leon, even a good friend of mine I know, is someone that inspires me. And as leaders and people that are setting the blaze, the trail for the next generation, how do you, when you've been in your darkest moments, how do you bring yourself back? And when you've got people around you that have been in their darkest moments to then get to the stage you are now, what advice have you got to bring yourself out of that, apart from learning from the lessons of the bad, that you can share with us here today?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. And I think if I think of what has grounded me, has been family, friends, community. I'm not defined by my job. So people, thank you for saying all these wonderful things. But when I'm walking along the street, nobody knows who I am or what I do. I'm just this old black lady now, right? That's just whatever. But actually, the grounding that I've had has stood me really in great stead in those darkest moments, right? And they come and they go. You all work in insurance, right? Up and down, investments. That's life, right? They come and they go. But for me, the constant has been family, friends, and community that has always been there for me and allowed me to be not Lorraine, this whatever, but just Lorraine. And me feeling safe enough to kind of bow to those moments, because you have to be in those moments in order to come out the other side and grow. So for me, it's who's around you and nurturing those relationships. I'm gonna bask in the glory of David here. He came in, and I was sitting beside Sky and Rose, and I went, I know him. I know David. I didn't know David Flint, right? I know Dave from Tottenham. Dave and Isaac. I'm saying this because this is the roots, right? So if I see Dave anywhere, I'm like, that's what helps you through your darkest moments. Having people around you that are part of your wider circle and community that you can just vibe with. I don't see Dave very often, but I know Dave. And now I'm in awe of Dave because it's David Flint. But it's to say, have those connections, right? Nurture those relationships, because that gives you your kind of grounding and enables you and supports you through those darkest moments.
Can I add a comment?
Of course.
So, Scotty, you mentioned your grandfather being a hero of yours. My grandfather came just after Windrush. My grandmother came a few years later because she refused to get on a boat to come here. She said, you go make money, and when you can afford to fly me over, then I will come. So I came from a very proud foundation, to your point. So I can tell you that when I look around the sort of leadership of the brokers and the underwriters, there's not many people that look like me in the position that I'm in. So when I have to go into my internal monologue, I listen to my granddad's voice. I dress like this because my granddad dressed like this, not because this is the rules of Lloyd's. This is how he dressed. Yeah. So this is my family standard. Yeah. And I bring my family standard to all of my problems. And I think to answer your question, I go to the core. Yeah. I go back and look at the pictures of my granddad dressed exactly as I am today. And I go, this is what I'm meant to be doing. Yeah. And if I can't find a role model, I wasn't lucky enough to meet you two until today. I go and become that for someone else. So that's how I get through it.
I think I'd like to say something on that. Great question, by the way. You talk about dark moments and overcoming them. When we went down towards Iraq, we got to Gibraltar, and they gave us our little Nokia brick phones back. We could make one last call home. Remember them? And we called home, and we were hearing that not everybody's behind the Iraq war, and that there was 1 million people protesting in Whitehall, and, you know, we're like that. This was a difficult moment, because you'd like to think that when you serve, why do I serve? What am I serving for? Am I going to make a difference? And most people back home don't want this. And, you know, is it a just war? Is it a legal war? Am I doing something illegal? You got all of that comes out as well. This was a difficult time to be a commander. So we get on the ground. We had to go to the local town once we were there. And we were very well received at the time. There were women waving at us from behind their walls, kids coming out, we're giving them sweets, and this is in the southernmost tip of Iraq. A poor fella come out, he's about 70 years old, he had his top off, you could see that he had an ingrained suntan, and his whole body had, you could see he'd been tortured, front and back, and there were scars everywhere on his front and back, and he threw himself at our feet. I was the commander on the ground that day. We had an interpreter with us, and he said, can you please go to the local police station, where not one, but all 5 of his daughters had been taken away by the regime. He'd spoken out against the regime, they tortured him, took one of his daughters away. They took them all in the end. We went to the police station, everybody had fled. The army had gone, the police had gone, there was grenades and RPGs everywhere. Massive, great building. And we went in from the top and did this room clearance. Marines are good at that. And we got to the basement. Well, it wasn't a basement, it was like a jail. Well, it wasn't a jail, it was actually a dungeon. And it was dark. There were hooks on the walls, and there was cake blood and stuff. And they were really small, and it was freezing cold. And I went inside one of them, and one of my Marines had brushed past and inadvertently closed the gate behind me. It was pitch black. And at that moment, I knew that the worst possible conceivable probably did happen to all 5 of those poor girls. That hatred and that abuse was something that was real, that I saw. Still stays with me in my dreams sometimes at night, but then it reminded me why I served. And I remembered, we got this poor little bloke here who has suffered so much, irrelevant of the political reasons for us being there. I'm glad that we're here today to support this poor bloke. He has suffered enough. I see myself as a peaceful warrior, try to make a positive difference to people's lives wherever I go. And that's always been in my heart, and that has come from my family heritage, to be proud of what you do, hold your head up high, and know that you did the best that you could.
Definitely. And that seems like a phenomenal way to actually end this time. So thank you again to my panellists. Again, a truly inspirational conversation. David?
Thank you.